Hey, welcome to Tales from the Troll Hole. I'm your host, Cecil Beee, and together we're going to dive deep into the internet and find what stories there are to be read, enjoyed, laughed at, cried with, you name it. Thanks for coming along on this journey with me. Now grab your torch and pitchfork. Let's dive into this troll hole. Welcome back to Tales from the Troll Hole. Today we're doing our special Halloween episode. I have a lot of really good memories from when I was a kid, trick-or-treating and getting to pick out costumes and the best Halloween candy ever. You know what the worst Halloween candy ever is? Yellow Starbursts and the orange ones. Yuck. Those flavors of candy were created by people who hate everyone. Best ones, though, hands down, Butterfinger. So good. It doesn't matter if they were the Butterfinger BBs, the fun size, or the regular size or the king size. There is no bad way to have a Butterfinger. Except perhaps rectally. Anywho, let's get back to the Halloween episode. I am going to find some fun stories of creepypasta. If you're not familiar, those are creepy stories that are written on the internet, and I'm going to read some for you. Now, these can be pretty scary, so if you need a blankie and to turn the light on, I recommend you do so. All right, here we go. This story is from Ezekiel H. Graves on Reddit, and it's called Fatal Click. I didn't mean to find it. It was just another sleepless night scrolling through random subreddits when I stumbled onto a post with no title, just a username, error 404 found. Curious, I clicked. The page that loaded wasn't Reddit. It was a black screen with two flashing words, "Don't look." I laughed, thinking it was some cheap prank, but when I tried to close the tab, my computer froze. Then my phone buzzed. A new Reddit notification lit up the screen. "We told you not to look." I blinked, confused. It was a message from an unknown user. My smile faded. It was just a coincidence, right? But that night, as I lay in my bed, my phone buzzed again. Another Reddit notification. "We see you." My stomach dropped. I clicked the app. It wasn't a comment or a DM. It was coming from the same strange username, error 404 found. I deleted the message, telling myself it was just a troll. But the next day, at 3:04 a.m., my phone buzzed again. Another notification. "We're closer." Panic washed over me. I hadn't signed up for anything. I changed my passwords, reset everything, even disconnected the Wi-Fi. But the night after that, at the exact same time, 3:04 a.m., my phone buzzed again. Almost there. I was terrified. I powered off my phone, threw it in a drawer. But at 3:04 a.m., it turned itself on. The same notification appeared on the lock screen. One more night. I didn't sleep. I stayed awake pacing until 3:04 a.m. came again. This time, the message was different. "Look outside." My heart pounded as I stumbled over to the window, hands shaking. The street was quiet. Too quiet, like the air had been sucked out of the world. But beneath the streetlight, just beyond its reach, was something standing there. It was no ordinary shadow. It was tall, impossibly thin, its limbs twisted, bending at grotesque angles as if something had broken it and rearranged the pieces wrong. It didn't move, but I knew it was watching me. It didn't have a face, only a gaping blackness where one should have been. And yet it was staring, its head slightly tilted like it was waiting for something. Then the scratching began. A horrible screeching noise filled my ears like nails on glass, louder and louder, drilling into my skull. I gripped my head, falling back from the window, my pulse pounding in my ears, and then, just as suddenly as it had started, the sound stopped. Silence. I gasped, my breath shaking, and crawled back to the window. The streetlight flickered, and the shadow was gone. I let out a nervous laugh, my body trembling. Maybe it was all in my head. Maybe I was just... My phone buzzed again. We're here. My stomach dropped. I looked back out the window. Nothing. I stared out for a long moment, my heart pounding. Then a soft sound, a creak, echoed from behind me, coming inside the room. Slowly, I turned around. The light flickered once, twice, then died completely. In the darkness, a shape moved, closer, then closer still, unfolding from the shadows like it had been hiding in the corners of the room all along. Its limbs cracked and stretched unnaturally, its faceless head turning towards me. I froze as its elongated fingers reached for me. Cold breath brushed against my face. The last thing I saw was a notification lighting up my phone screen in the dark. You shouldn't have looked. Wow, that was a good one. Oh my gosh, that was creepy. I didn't read that ahead of time, and I was going along. Oh, I was getting so creeped out myself. Ugh. I'm glad I have the lights on in here because, Jiminy, great job, Ezekiel H. Graves. That was really good. Now I'm going to tell you a ghost story, also from Reddit. This one is from a deleted username. When my middle child was about 2.5 or 3, we lived in an old house with a lot of poorly built, self-done renovations. There was an under-the-house storage/workshop area accessible from one of the bedrooms. This workshop has a hatch door to the dirt under the house. Anyway, my daughter used to complain about the blue lady that lives under the house. We moved and had never heard about it again. That is so creepy. Why do kids always see the ghosts and talk to them? I just don't understand it. But also, I want to know how long it was between that incident and when they moved out, because I bet you it was years. Nobody ever moves out when they're in a haunted house. They don't do it. They just stay put. Why? I would stay put, though, actually. I think I would. So never mind, I get it. This next story comes from Alpha Magus on Reddit. I was living in a 3-story, approximately 250-year-old house with my wife. We had the top floor and were both asleep. I woke at around 2 in the morning due to a strange smell and saw a young girl sat on our bed close to my wife combing her hair. I swear that I could not move or make a sound. I was absolutely frozen in fear. The young girl sensed my presence, looked at me, smiled, and then just faded away. I woke my wife and she thought I was insane until a picture fell off the wall when I was telling her about it. The door and windows were both shut, yet down it fell. It still gives me tingles every time I think about it. That is very odd. I mean, I got tingles too just listening to the story, but at least the ghost was just trying to brush your wife's hair. I mean, that's a pretty mild ghosting, in my opinion, unless it was an evil comb. I don't know. Jury's out on that one. Haunted jury. Ooh, okay. Yeah, like a new courtroom drama that is paranormal where the jury is ghosts. Let's figure that. Let's workshop that. Let's circle back. Table that for now. This next story is a creepypasta posted by Verlac1. The Dark Lullaby of Ash Grove Asylum. On a foggy October night, my 3 friends and I stood outside the abandoned Ash Grove Asylum, its shadows stretching over us like some silent, lurking beast. The building loomed in the darkness, its cracked stone walls swallowed by ivy, windows shattered into sharp, jagged teeth. People called this place cursed. Legends swirled around Ash Grove, tales passed down for generations about the mysterious disappearance of Nurse Evelyn Crane. She was a kind woman, they said, who cared for the patients as if they were family. But one night she vanished, leaving only a chilling lullaby that echoed through the halls. It became known as the Nurse's Rhyme, a twisted warning that haunts the memories of those who dared to enter. The words of her rhyme are whispered like a ghost story around campfires. Nurse comes for those who wander. Nurse comes to take you under. Some said that those who heard it were doomed to wander the asylum's halls forever, trapped in a trance, just as Nurse Crane was. We'd laughed it off, all of us. But now, as we pushed open the rusty doors, our laughter had faded. We stepped inside, and a biting chill wrapped around us immediately, as if the asylum itself were breathing. The air was thick with the stench of mold and rot. The silence was so heavy it felt as though the whole building was waiting, listening to us. I could hear footsteps echo off the cracked tiles, each step a reminder of how alone we were, or how alone we should have been. After a few minutes of walking, Ethan's flashlight flickered and went out. He cursed, shaking it, but it stayed dark. "Batteries were new," he muttered, his voice thin, almost swallowed by the silence. Just then, I thought I heard something. A faint whisper, so soft it was barely there, floating from the end of the corridor. My heart began to pound as a shiver crawled up my spine. I tried to convince myself it was the wind. But deep down, I knew better. We all did. We moved deeper into the asylum, the long corridors narrowing around us, and eventually reached what looked like an old operating room. The walls were painted with peeling gray paint, stained with something too dark to be rust. I felt the temperature drop again, as if the room itself were swallowing the warmth. Shadows clung to the walls, thick and unmoving. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw something flicker, a dark shape darting along the edges of my vision. I gasped, stepping back, bumping into Jake. "Did you see that?" I whispered, though I could barely breathe. But no one had seen anything, only me. Still, we all felt it, the weight pressing in on us, like something terrible had just brushed past. The air seemed to thicken, wrapping around us, filling our lungs with icy dread. "Let's go," Sarah whispered, her voice barely audible, and we all nodded, silently grateful for the excuse to leave. But as we turned towards the door, it slammed shut, the sound echoing through the darkened halls like a gunshot. I lunged for the handle, pulling as hard as I could, but it wouldn't budge. My hands grew cold and clammy, each tug at the door leaving my heart pounding faster. A sudden gust of icy wind tore through the room, and that was when I heard it. An eerie lullaby, so faint and twisted that it sounded like it was coming from the walls themselves. I turned to look at Jake, and a chill froze me to the bone. His face had gone slack, his eyes empty and unfocused, as though he were staring straight through me. Then his mouth opened, and in a soft, sing-song voice I didn't recognize, he began to mutter, "Nurse comes for those who wander. Nurse comes to take you under." My stomach twisted. I grabbed his arm, trying to shake him, but he just kept muttering, his voice growing softer, his eyes unfocused, fixed on something I couldn't see. Ethan and I pushed on the door again, slamming our shoulders into it, but it wouldn't move. The walls seemed to close in, shadows reaching out from the corners, stretching towards us like hands clawing for skin. And then the footsteps began. Slow, careful footsteps echoing down the hall. They grew louder, each one more measured, each one more intentional, like something or someone was coming for us. And the lullaby. It grew louder, wrapping around us like a suffocating fog. I could feel a cold, lingering presence slide against my skin, the touch of fingers that weren't there, and a horrible realization settled into my chest, squeezing my heart with icy fingers. We hadn't found the ghost had found us. I grabbed Sarah and Ethan, shouting that we had to go, but they just stared back at me with a blank, hollow expression. Their eyes had that same glassy look Jake's did, empty, like they weren't seeing me anymore. Desperate, I shook each one of them, screaming their names, but they only muttered softly, voices blending with the twisted lullaby filling the air. "Nurse comes for those who wander. Nurse comes to take you under." Their gazes drifted past me towards the approaching footsteps. I backed away, feeling trapped, surrounded by the encroaching darkness and my friends' haunted faces. I didn't want to leave them, but the dread was crushing me, pushing me towards the door. I turned and ran, throwing my weight against the door with a final, desperate shove, and somehow it gave way. I stumbled into the hallway, glancing back one last time to see the shadows swallowing them, wrapping around my friends like tendrils of smoke, their faces faded, their eyes lifeless, fixed on something just beyond the darkness. I called out, but they didn't respond, and the cold crept closer, and then the door slammed shut, locking them inside. I ran down the empty corridors, my footsteps echoing, the lullaby following me like a ghostly whisper. I didn't stop until I was outside, gasping for air, the asylum towering behind me, dark and silent. They never came out. The last thing I heard, echoing in my mind, was my friends' voices, barely a whisper in the darkness. "Nurse comes for those who wander. Nurse comes to take you under. Ooh, yeah, that was a good one. That was a good one, too. There is an abandoned asylum around my neck of the woods here. I've heard that you can go to it if you get through some woods and stuff, but I haven't had a chance to go. And after reading that, I don't know if I want to. I think that's one of the best things about scary stories and Halloween is that our brains have such an amazing ability to make something a reality. And even on a level when we know it's fake, but we still allow ourselves to dip into the reality and be scared for fun. I think that's a really cool thing that we're able to do and that we have a holiday for it. I think that's nice. Nice. I really like the 2-sentence horror stories. Those are really cool. So I'm going to read a couple of those for you now. This is from a Reddit user called I Know Crazy. I used to hate the sound of crickets outside the lonely farmhouse. Now, every time they go silent, I know that thing is passing by, and I pray for them to chirp again. It's just amazing that they can make a scary story in 2 sentences. It's not an easy art form, I'm sure. That's so cool. All right, let's get another one. This one is from a user called Joker Crow. It seems you have discovered an entirely new type of termite. The doctor turned around with the x-rays. This also explains the aching you've been feeling in your bones. Ugh. That just made my bones itch. Oh, that was terrible. Great job. Ugh. This one is from user Minnie the Mermaid. 2 eyes peered at me through the darkness, then disappeared again. No survivors down there, I heard the rescuer say. Oh, God. Yeah, this is so scary. See, this is crazy because it's not like ghosty things. It's just like straight up horror. Our last 2-sentence horror story is from Flight. I forgot to grab something. I'll be right back, said Mom. As she rounded the corner out of sight, the cashier began ringing up our groceries. I wanted to end it on a little funny one there. That was good. Because that's such a scary thing. Man, such a scary moment, but not like actually scary. All right. Well, thank you for joining me for this bonus Halloween episode. I hope you didn't get too scared. Make sure to have a nice little sweet treat. Maybe some Swedish fish. Maybe some sixlets. Butterfinger. 3 Musketeers. Popcorn ball. Nobody does those anymore. You ever notice that? I only ever heard about them in cartoons from the 60s, but I've never actually seen a real-life popcorn ball. Anyway, I hope you have a good, safe holiday, and I'll see you next week. Thank you so much for listening to Tales from the Troll Hole. I'm your host, Cecil Beee, and this show is produced by me. Our theme song is by Vervex. They're a great band. You should give them a listen. You can stream them anywhere. They're also on TikTok and Instagram. Remember to subscribe so that you don't miss out on a single episode. And also find us on Instagram, and then you can send in your own stories. I just ask that they're true and that they're not going to scar somebody for life. You know what I mean? Anyway, thanks for listening, and I'll see you next week.